Hello, Ectosage here on the Sage channel, and today I'm going to show off what I'm calling the Cannibal class construction ships. And I call them Cannibal because a lot of these ships are actually having an assortment of construction and deconstruction tools, so they can build up something or tear it down. And I started out with a rather simple setup of something similar to this over here, where I have a cockpit in the middle, a few lights to show what we're doing, these little radio things, because I think in the future those might possibly be used to tell distance or maybe even somehow ping and scan to tell how built or unbuilt an object is. That way, you know, you're not just blindly welding or grinding until it's just gone or fully complete, and also maybe, you know, so you can tell if you run out of a certain supply you need. So I started out with, you know, this front section here, connecting back to a large container like this, and then I added on that and carried on. But before I did that, I started out with a few little simple designs such as this, where I have what I just talked about. I have that cargo container, and then I have a connector on top. So that way we could, in the future, connect to a ship and get all the supplies we need with ease. And of course, you know, drop off anything we've harvested. And also, as the current game is, we can also just go ahead, press K, and drop things in there. And I have the reactors of this ship strung about, I believe, yes, they're going through the middle of this section right here. I got, I think, 3 reactors in there. And this is actually probably my favorite type of all the ones I've built, is this little one here that has the squat, only 4 tool setup. Whereas those down there actually have a fair few more. But this one I like a lot. It's nice. And I also have 3 different variants of it. I have one with just welders, one with grinders and welders, and one with just grinders. And I also have a variant up here, which is the grinders and welders one, where I stuck 2 cockpits in. I removed the center one and stuck 2 and moved them back. That way, if you wanted, you could have 2 people, maybe one person running the tools, another person just concentrating on flying. I don't know exactly how you like that, or maybe just a backup cockpit, however you like it set up. Anyway, it's pretty cool. All the conveyors are hooked up in between the tools. You can see they pop out, they go to the center point, and then they connect to that. And the ones on the bottom, I believe, because this ship is a strange design where there's not enough equal space in the middle, I think I have, yes, on this one I have a very strange setup where it comes out, it goes to this one, it has a single divider there, which then goes into a L-bend up into the large storage crate. Because otherwise I couldn't actually, you know, ideally you would have this setup here where you got your tool, your L-bend, a single piece, and then the 6-way connector, but there is no such thing as a 6-way connector, because if I add a 6-way connector, then I could use another half piece right there, and then just use another 6-way connector right here to connect these 2 straight up. Instead, I have to make this go out and then go up and connect into the cargo crate, which is a bit annoying. Hopefully in the future we'll find a way to have a 6-way large connector. Anyway, let's move on from this ship. I like it a fair bit. By the way, if you would like to see a cutaway of the inside, let me just go ahead and cook one up really quick. Alrighty, so there we go, got a cutaway, and you can see everything I was talking about now, where those had connected in, they go up. You can see, actually, let me just chop that open a bit more to make it very clear how this is all set up. There you go. You can see it all feeds in. It's pretty nice, simple, and of course I even have some stuff coming from this one using small pipes leading down into these, and of course I can transfer stuff through each other, and then this has a connector at the back again, or at least an open spot at the back where you could usually access it. I'll show you on a finished one. That way, if the ship ever completely runs out of power, you can at least put some more in here, and it'll feed to the reactors. And also, just in case that telling this to spit everything out somehow ends up pulling from those, even if you tell them not to use conveyors or something, then of course you can just sever them and disconnect them, which is nice. Anyway, moving on, this was, like I said, the base for some of these other ones. I actually, this exact design was too cramped. There wasn't enough room to stick engines around it, so these actually have a fairly different setup inside, but it still has a large crate and still has tools on either end. And the idea between this is something I've actually seen on Steam Workshop and on Reddit and other places, is the idea of having tools on the front and the back in separate cockpits. So when you want to use a different set of tools, you fly around to the other side and hop in it, which is, I don't know, I think it's less efficient, frankly, than the versions down there and the versions down there. But it's a good idea, and you also have your backup cockpit. That way, if something goes wrong, you'll have another cockpit. But overall, I'm not the keenest on it, and I ended up trying to make things so symmetrical, I ended up in spots of bothers to see from that ugly, ugly gray version. But on this one, had the setups, again, almost exactly like those other ones, except for now, instead of only having one space, one block space in between these and these, I now put 3 in there. That way, it would be a little easier to connect things up. I can have the pipes come out, and then connecting into those, then just go down. Again, if I had a 6-way connector, I could just have the 6-way there, 6-way at the bottom, and then they connect into another 6-way in the middle, and then the pipe would just go straight back. But as it is, it doesn't work so well because, of course, no six-way connector. And then, of course, this ship, if you wanted, you could jury-rig to have another cockpit. Actually, this one was even better, I believe, because you can put the cockpit right on top of this one, so you could have both people at the front if you'd like at the same time, without having to do the silly upside down or just having to push them back. But anyway, this is the ship. It's pretty good. It's pretty slow, frankly, but it gets a job done. It's a construction ship, so let's be honest, it's not supposed to have tons and tons of speed. And of course, as I was saying, it's got the welders on one side, the grinders on the other. And you might notice there that we also have these connectors here set up. That way you can connect the ship and drop off whatever you need and get more. And now let me go ahead and cut this ship in half and show you what its insides look like. So there you go. I took a really quick swipe off. You can see in here there is a few gyroscopes. It'll be gone in a second, so let me take another swipe. And there we go. Now you can see the inner workings of the ship. It's pretty simple and pretty similar to the ones we just saw with all, well, it's just floating away now, with all the pipes going in, going up, connecting, and then moving on. And I believe this ship's reactors, if I was to cut away at this, yeah, there we go, they're stuffed right in there, and I believe it actually lets you transfer from the big side door into these. If it doesn't, this ship is completely useless, but it's a ship I'm not too keen on, and I probably wouldn't use much anyway. But here's our large cargo container right in the middle. It's pretty interesting. Anyway, moving on to the next one, which is this one. This was an attempt basically at using small cargo containers, or not small but medium cargo containers, where I'd have a bunch of them, and I use the, well, what I keep calling six-way connectors, but they're really four-way connectors for the large, and they have an assortment of 6 but only on 2 sides for the small. But if we were to cut into this here, you can see that we have the 4-way connector thingies I was just talking about stuck all in here, and then of course the cargo crates I just took out. And then as the front and back, those are actually just the exact same things I was just showing, and then the engines are just sort of spattered about, not exactly in a brilliant way. I'm very, very unhappy with that ship, frankly. And then we move on to these sets of ships, which are actually pretty much all the same. Their inner workings are exactly the same between these 3 here. And these ships on the front, instead of having, 2 and 2 or anything like that, they have pretty much a sort of cross patterns from each other, where we have 4 grinders and then 4 welders. And it's very, very efficient, I would think, to be able to have all those right there. And then, of course, if we were to look at the actual structure and setup of the ship, we have our braking/reverse engines here. Very nice. By the way, these had them here. And then if we look at the one I just cut in half, where'd you go? There we go, up here. I never actually pointed those out, but those are here. Very nice. And then the first ones, I didn't actually show those either. Dear me, sorry about this running about. They're actually here, and you might think they would cause trouble and hit those, but the flames actually, very luckily, go right in between them. So let me accelerate and let the inertial dampers stop. You can see the flames shoot in between those. No issue. It's very, very nice. This is still probably my favorite, just because it seems like a speedy little builder. Of course, I would suggest using the one with grinders and welders. Anyway, back to where I was a second ago before I went off on that wonderful tangent. This one has its 4 engines for stopping, which gives a pretty good stopping power, and then it's got a whole huge assortment of engines here, or thrusters, I guess I should be calling them, to stop it, or to allow it to move in different directions, and then a whole bunch at the back. And then as its support column here comes out the back, or I call it support column because it's what everything's actually attached to or aligned along, it comes straight through to the back where we have our connector. For storage inside this ship, we actually do have another large storage container. It's stuck right in here in this big bulged up section. But I sort of redid the way this all connects up, I believe. So if I was to go ahead and take one of these, move it up here, I can cut it open and show you how the inside's set up on this one. That's a bit different from the other one. Alrighty, so here we go, I've cut into it. You can see that the setup here is mostly the same, but instead of it having that open spot right there behind the cockpit, we have our reactors here. And I have actually copied over the previous one we were looking at over here. With this one, as the pieces come back, they bend, of course, into these, and then they bend back and down into there. And this one actually has the same thing, where they go back and bend into there. But the middle ones, they actually go into a 4-way connector there, which then connects straight back into this one here with its own 4-way connector there. You know what I'm saying? They come back, whoop, to their 4-way connector instead of a reactor, which then, of course, connects into that one. But, of course, that 4-way cannot connect into those up there when saving us those pipes. It's very unfortunate. And then, of course, this one goes back, whereas this one goes straight directly into the cargo container, which is pretty nice. And then, of course, it carries on back all the way with these pipes here to that connector at the very back, allowing you to have one very simple access point to everything. And let me actually cut away at this sort of framework here where the engines were sort of sitting in. You can see our gyroscope stuck in there too. I'll cut away at that just so you can see the pipe to make sure. Yeah, just so I can expose that pipe, because it seems silly not to get the pipe exposed. Alrighty, there we go. Now you can see the pipe that runs through the whole thing. I like this idea, this design of having this sort of like main structural pipe straight to the middle. It's very nice, very cool, and it means you got a nice connection point right at the back of the ship. So when you dock the ship, hopefully in the future, you'll actually be able to use these to hold the ship in place, or maybe with the new blocks that they're adding somewhat soon, you'll be able to use those to lock it in place as well, or the assortment of landing gears mixed with it. But hopefully the idea is you lock the ship from the back, and it can refuel whatever it needs to do and then leave. By the way, if you're hearing some wind sounds in the background, there's some renovation going on in my office right now, or at least there's an open wall that's no longer a wall, let's put it that way. Anyway, so that if you hear that in this video or any of the other videos around this time, that would be why. I apologize. Anyway, these are all pretty much the same inside, actually exactly the same inside. The only real difference with these is that I've changed the color scheme, and from the first version here, I've actually also gone ahead and added these little bump out pieces that I've colored differently to sort of give it more of a industrial look. And of course those bump out pieces make it look a bit more like it could bump into stuff and not break apart. So this one I like, but this one and that one I like more. I'd probably end up using this one. And yeah, that's about it on these. By the way, I do still have lights stuck there, and then I do have the scanners, or whatever they're called, radio things, up here, and of course that's mirrored on the bottom and the other side. So anyway, that's that. These all work very, very well, or at least pretty well, I find, and I like having the cockpits close to the edges of the actual welding points. That way you can see what you're doing nice and close, and you can hopefully avoid any depth issues if you're deciding to use these in first person, which is my favorite way to play pretty much any game. So anyway, that's that. I hope you guys enjoyed. Thank you for watching, and this should be up on the Steam Workshop. Maybe not today, but by tomorrow, hopefully. Anyway, again, thanks so much for watching, guys. I'll see you next time.